By 1928, after 4 years in the United States, Liang Sicheng and Huiyin were ready to return home. Liang Qichao was overjoyed, and he kept himself busy looking for jobs for them. At present, the job market is tough, and you may not be able to find just what you want. I can arrange jobs for you whenever you want, but you should come back and see the situation for yourselves. But don't let yourselves lose hope. That's the worst thing that could happen. We must never let ourselves lose hope. A classmate of Liang Sicheng's had been invited to establish a new architecture department at Northeastern University, but he had already accepted a job. He recommended Liang Sicheng for the post. Meanwhile, Liang Qichao had asked Tsinghua University to hire Liang Sicheng as a lecturer. In the end, Liang Sicheng decided that Northeastern was the better choice. Early in 1928, Liang Sicheng and Lin Huiyin decided to marry. Liang Qichao suggested that they should hold the wedding in the United States. Then, on their way home, they could spend their honeymoon touring Europe and exploring its classical architecture. Before they left the United States as newlyweds, they received a letter from Liang Qichao. Sicheng, Huiyin, I haven't written to the two of you for almost 2 months. I have some good news for you. My health has improved greatly. I went to hospital 2 weeks ago for a blood transfusion and a checkup. After the transfusion, my red cell count was 420, which is normal. I hope you are pleased to get this news. The truth, however, was very different. A month earlier, Liang Qichao had undergone an unsuccessful kidney operation. The doctors had told him he had less than a year to live. Sicheng, the last few days I've been busy buying wedding gifts for the two of you, and I'm in high spirits. I've endured so much since I held you in my arms as a baby. You have grown into a scholar with high moral character, and you have made an excellent marriage, and will soon return home to my embrace. How could I not be happy? In August 1928, Liang Sicheng and Lin Huiyin arrived back in Beijing 4 years after they had set out to study in the United States. Following a brief reunion with Liang Qichao in Tianjin, they moved to Shenyang, where Liang Sicheng would take up the post at Northeastern University. A month later, their father's health took a turn for the worse, and he was admitted to hospital. He remained there until his death on January the 19th, 1929. Liang Qichao had been 18 when he saw a map of the world for the first time. Before long, he was throwing off his ignorance of the world, and by making the most of his extraordinary energy, he became a fighter against the decadence of the old regime. He became a champion of change. In his thinking, he blended the traditional and the modern. He was alternately radical and cautious, and he was always prepared to let his present self pass judgment on his former self. Like a swift-flowing stream, he never took a moment's pause. His children were truly fortunate to have such a father who was warm, tender, loving, and responsible. He passed on to his children a treasure of incalculable value, character, and ability. I am an advocate of all that is of interest. If someone were to analyze my chemical composition, they would certainly find an element called delight, if I haven't already used it up. At every stage of my life, I've become interested in something new, and it seems like I've started life all over again, like the rising sun climbing into the heavens, or a lotus plant striking root in the water. Although I don't want you to lead a wandering life like I did, I hope you can at least appreciate my virtue of being progressive. For Liang Sicheng and Lin Huiyin, newly arrived in Shenyang, the autumn of 1928 was highly eventful. 3 months earlier, while they were on their honeymoon in Europe, the Japanese had blown up a train carrying the warlord Zhang Zuolin. Zhang's death became known as the Huanggu-Tuan incident. He was succeeded as military commander of the 3 northern provinces by his son Zhang Xueliang, who also became president of Northeastern University, where Liang Sicheng had just started teaching. Northeastern University was founded by Zhang Zuolin in 1923. Zhang Xueliang's dream was for it to train talented people who could build up a new society and help modernize the country sufficiently for it to resist encroachment by its neighbors. Northeastern University had 6 colleges: humanities, science, law, engineering, education, and agriculture. By offering high salaries, it attracted leading academics from China and abroad. Zhang Xueliang also stressed the importance of sport. The first Chinese athlete to participate in the Olympics, Liu Changchun in 1932, was a student there. This is where the old Science and Engineering building of Northeastern University once stood. In 1928, the building housed the university's newly established architecture department. At just 27, Liang Sicheng was head of the architecture department, and he and Lin Huiyin were its only 2 teachers. They modelled the curriculum on that of their alma mater, the University of Philadelphia, adding courses on the history of Chinese palaces and building construction and the history of Eastern art. Their idea was to create a balance between Eastern and Western approaches to building and train architects who had an appreciation for the aesthetics of Chinese architecture. Liang Sicheng, recording his thoughts on how architecture should be taught, wrote the following. The wind is blowing from the west to the east, and people are competing to be the most westernized. All our daily necessities are made in the Western manner, and we follow in the footsteps of the West in everything, from warships and cannons to the clothes we wear and the food we eat. The technology our country has created is being forgotten and is practiced only by uneducated artisans, and everyone prefers Western buildings because of their convenience. However, artisans do not have aesthetic sensibilities, and they pile up bricks at random, throwing Chinese aesthetics into confusion. So, in recent decades, most buildings built in China have been built in the so-called foreign style. In fact, though, this style is foreign not only in China, but everywhere else. In light of these considerations, this department takes as its basic goal to rectify this unfortunate situation by giving its young students a basic education.